I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 10:01. And yeah, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I see some new faces too. Welcome. Design Council. I know I wasn't here last meeting, so I didn't get to see you both. Were you both here?
Yeah.
Last meeting? Okay. Well, welcome officially from the chair. Yeah, excited to have you all on board. Hi, Lindsay. Welcome.
Hello.
We got started.
So sorry, everyone.
No, you're fine.
Name went a little longer.
You're fine. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start with the first item, the minutes. If I'm gonna abstain from this vote because I wasn't here, but if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Morning, welcome. We just got started.
That's, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Nays? Okay. Approved unanimously. Move to the next item. Well, item number 2, we have an artwork acquisition from Robert Buck. It is a painting, and there was a attachment to the agenda with a lengthy description of the work and all that it represents. Hopefully, you had a chance to read through that. And do we have someone to talk to about this specific?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, but just kind of a general overview. The city, or the Division of Arts and Cultural Services, in partnership with the library, had a program late last year and early this year in 2024 called Candid Conversations. So we hosted a variety of kind of informational sessions with a panel of experts on specific topics that ultimately stem from the Chester I. Lewis project. So Chester I. Lewis had a robust list of topics that he was an expert in. So we wanted to extend the work that was done at the park and extend the conversation past that. So we had candid conversations with a variety of different individuals related to different themes. For this specific project, we had a candid conversation about redlining and the history of housing in Wichita. We tried to pair an artist with the panels to have some sort of art element as part of the conversation. And in this panel, we contracted with Robert Buck, professor at WSU, who does a lot of mapping work in his artistic practice to create a work based on that conversation. So the painting, the mixed media work that was created at this conversation has been on display at the library for the last 6 months since it was completed, but it was ultimately created during that candid conversation itself. So it's a really unique opportunity that we kind of explored. It was an experimental project that we did with the library just to host community conversations about important topics. This one was about redlining, and the product that the artist created was pretty phenomenal, and it has been very well received by the library since inception. We did contract with the artist to create the work, but we didn't purchase the work as part of that contract. The division has some end of year funding available, and we think that this would be a great acquisition to the city's collection. So it would be funded out of the division's admin budget with support from the library to house it. We are also looking at a capital improvement project at the library in future years for improved lighting for this work, and then the John Waltner piece of correct, the mobile that we accessioned in the last year as well in the staircase. So that's kind of a nutshell of this project, but happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions or comments about this acquisition?
I'll say, because we've got a lot of new members, this is a very unusual project. We don't typically accession paintings or mixed media works into the collection that then are on a wall in the library. Not traditionally how we do it, but this was a unique programmatic opportunity. So while we like to entertain them whenever they pop up.
Yeah, maybe it could be, since we have a lot of new people, it would be good to make a fresh conversation. I know we had a discussion whenever the mobile was presented to us. It's an opportunity, right? A donation to the city collection. And we had a discussion about what that looks like when an artist wants to donate an artwork. What's the process to do that? Do we always accept donated artwork? Do we not? Who makes those decisions? Maybe we can have a quick refresher on that,
Sure.
just to have that discussion, not to put you on the spot, but.
Jana, please correct me if I get anything wrong or chime in as needed. Ultimately, this is the approval body. The design council approves any acquisitions and deacquisitions of the city's public art collection, which includes kind of the traditional sense of public art, murals, sculptures, things like in exterior public spaces, integrated design projects. Typically, projects are funded out of the CIP or percent for art ordinance and are bundled in with a project package. But then we have these one-off projects that present themselves not fairly often, but I would say a couple times a year, we have an artist or a stakeholder, community member that wants to donate a work to the community for a recreation center, library, public safety space, city hall, sister cities program might want to donate a piece. Ultimately, we accession them into our public art collection so that way we have a care and maintenance plan, we have its origin, we kind of know what we have and where it is, and that we can maintain it in perpetuity. We have a lot of temporary works in the collection as well, or works that are kind of project specific. So painting a temporary mural on a restroom facility at a park. This committee or this council has approved those projects in the past, realizing that we're not necessarily going to be responsible for maintaining those in perpetuity. This project is a little bit different because it's one that we would be able to do, or we believe would be able to do. So ultimately, this body approves them and can ask any sort of question, but it's really the design council's responsibility to accession works into the collection that they think are meaningful to the community and have public benefit.
I have a quick question. How long is it housed in this location, or is that like a permanent installation?
I would say it's permanent. It doesn't have to be. When we were initially brainstorming this project, we thought we would tour it through a few of the libraries or even put it on display in City Council's office. We rotate art out in their lobby. And we thought that this would be an important thing to have on display there. I would say it fits very nicely where it is right now, and the library loves its location. It's getting good response. The artist likes that location. So we don't really have any desire to change it, but it's not, the commitment for acquisition is not committed to that space in particular.
You know, with the installation view, the image of the plaque next to the left of the word, does that have like a description about the piece?
So it's been a minute since I've been over there to look at it, but the descriptor is a QR code that links you to, currently it links to Robert's website. On acquisition, we would likely shift that QR code to the Public Art Archive to have that information there, because there's the numbers affiliated in the picture are affiliated with specific locations and neighborhoods and buildings that are specific to Wichita's history. So each one of them has an essay about them that are very specific too. So it has some really interesting didactics that we would want to connect to. Great question.
Questions or comments? Just something to consider with, it's something always to think about when we have these type of opportunities is there's an ethical question about artwork being donated to a city collection program, right? Does it mean that any artist can just donate something and then they can say, you know, I have a piece of artwork as part of a city collection? That's a question that often comes up. What is the context of the piece? What is the value that is adding to a specific location that I might be going to? In this case, the library, right? It's part of a larger project. The library is invested. So when there's some other municipal entity that is recommending the acquisition of the piece, typically there's already been a lot of discussion happening before it gets to us, right? Where they have decided that this is a good fit for their location, for their building. But it's always important to keep in mind that how is this artwork being acquired, and what is the value that it's adding to the collection? Also, if we accept it, then that means that we have to use the dollars that we have, which are limited already, for future maintenance. So that's something else also that we have to take into account too. Have a budget for maintenance and restoration for public art in our collection, but that is also limited, right? It's not infinite money. So those are things to consider. Some of the things to consider whenever we have these type of opportunities show up. In this case, again, seems like the library already has done a lot of the vetting, so to speak. And at this point, it's kind of up to us to decide if we want to support their decision or make a different decision.
I would like to put is this is
Yeah,
a purchase, it's not a donation, which is also a bit unique.
Okay, great. So it is purchased from Robert Buck, right? It was commissioned, right? Did I get that?
Yes. To create the work, but not necessarily to purchase as part of it.
Great, thank you.
Kind of filling myself in on a couple of things that are going to happen. So I see the financial consideration is $5,500. That's for all three pieces. Is that correct?
One piece.
One piece, okay. What happens when the library decides that it wants to replace that piece on the wall with something else?
Good question. They don't necessarily have authority to like dispose of it or move it. They would work with us on finding a new location for that piece.
Okay, where does our artwork reside?
It's all on display with a few small sections.
So it has to find another home. It doesn't have like, we don't have a.
We don't have a vault or storage facility for art. Yeah.
We have a couple pieces within our admin office and city arts that are part of our collection. There's a couple of pieces that we're still trying to figure out if they're actually in our collection or if they were sort of just donated to the city without any paperwork approval process. We're still sorting out those, but the lion's share of our collection is actively on display. I've had some public inquiry in recent months, so I also want to be transparent that we do have pieces in storage in Century 2 in the basement, specifically the Chester I. Lewis Park reflection, or not the reflection park. We have the artwork that was previously there. So the Dockham counter and the assorted bronzes there. Those are quite large. They are in storage. They do have a siting location upon Finley Ross Park's redevelopment in the future that they're earmarked to go there. So we do have some pieces in storage, but we don't have a vault. The 300 plus collection pieces. You just gave me a.
I just gave you a list. Yeah, I don't remember the number.
Under 20 for sure.
Oh, yeah.
If not under 10 pieces in total in storage.
I'm doing some work with Denise Sherman on the Kansas African American Museum coming up. And because this has some real significance there, I'm just kind of wondering whether or not that might be a consideration for this piece or for us to be able to be involved with them in some way.
I think we could definitely consider loans in the future. Also keep in mind, and Chloe, not to put you on the spot, but the Wichita Art Museum's collection also is the city's collection. If it becomes prudent at any time for this to become part of Williams' collection, that then it could go out and that conversation could exist.
I don't know if everybody knows that, but the Wichita Art Museum's collection is actually publicly owned, which is quite unique. But it's an art collection from a museum that's owned by the public. Yeah, really cool.
This body does not govern that.
Correct.
All very confusing, but it all sort of works.
Yes. Well, any other discussion? If not, you would like to make a motion? Yep. Second, any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, passes unanimously. Move on to item number 3. And I appreciate everyone's patience that we move through these things. I know that literally all of you are new to the council. You came back, so you're gonna have an idea already to now. But we'll just roll with the punches and we'll try to make every item a learning opportunity so that you get to know more and more about what we do. Okay, thank you. Okay, so on item number 3, assignment of design council seat to arts council. Lindsay, would you like to walk us through that?
Me too, and I thank you, Jana, for preparing kind of the documentation and later on your agenda packet. It's been a longstanding tradition that the design council has had an ex officio representative from the design council serving as an ex officio board member to the Arts Council. A little bit of background that the Arts Council is an independent nonprofit that works closely with the city, but they are a separate entity. So unlike this board where you're appointed by the mayor's office and it has legal standing as part of an official city board and commission, the Arts Council is an independent nonprofit that works heavily in the fundraising side of things to help be a fiscal agent and a fiscal steward for where the city cannot. But they are an independent party. Division of Arts and Culture, myself, and Jesse Koza, who's kind of our third branch of our admin team with Jana, serves as the staff liaison to the Arts Council. So it's been a longstanding tradition that the Design Council has had a representative that just provides information about public art, Design Council affairs to the Arts Council upon their request. It's an ex officio seat. There's no financial commitment or volunteering commitment, although you're welcome to be as involved as you would like if desired. It's not a requirement of this body, but just a longstanding tradition. And the most recent representative from Design Council was Jesse Sterling. Before that was Monique Bacchus. I will say that they meet on Thursdays at lunchtime around noon. So I would just
Not
encourage.
every Thursday.
Third Thursday from noon to 1 is their traditional meeting, and then they meet at City Art. So if you're thinking about it, make sure it works on your schedule. I would say first and foremost is a completely volunteer opportunity from the Design Council. It's a great opportunity to kind of know what's going on in other boards and commissions as well. Staff would recommend Design Council self-selecting representative.
Right, so I don't know how we want to go about that. Usually there's somebody that is really eager to kind of be part of that board. I don't know if everyone is jumping at the bit.
You have to volunteer.
Yeah, right, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Do we need to vote on this or?
You can, if you would like to. I don't believe it's required though.
Okay, well, right, if you like to volunteer, then we welcome you to. Thank you. I don't think we need to vote on this, but thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll connect you via email with the necessary parties. Thanks.
Yeah, again, often within the community, there's confusion between Design Council and the Arts Council, right? Often they're seen as perceived as the same entity. But again, as Lindsay already mentioned earlier, they're two separate ones. Arts Council is really more focused on the advocacy. There's some grant funding that happens there as well. Us, we're focused on the public art and aesthetics with the city, with public art projects and assigning dollars for those projects. So it's different boards, different jobs, but ultimately the goal to make the city be a thriving arts community. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're just flying through these items. This is great. Item number 4. So, I don't know if you all had a chance to review and read the bylaws that were sent on the email and attached. If you haven't, you can just take a couple minutes to read through them. They're really not long at all. But up until recently, we didn't even know we had bylaws, let alone know about what's in them. So this is a great step. Yes. Yeah, so this is a great step in kind of getting to know ourselves a little better and the procedures. Also with that, when I was elected as a chair this year, that was the first time that we had ever elected a chair in the maybe 7 years I've been on the council. And it's mandated by the bylaws that every year we elect a new chair. So just to give you an idea that every day we're just doing a little bit better. We're just becoming a more efficient, well-oiled machine. And I love that. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Jenna. Yeah. So Lindsay, what's something that you would like for us to, I know you want us to review the bylaws, but ultimately.
I think I see this as a working document because we want to make sure it's reflective of the work that you want to be doing and the direction you would like Design Council to be going in. It's pretty bare bones in my brief understanding of it. It's really connected to the percent per hour ordinance, which makes a lot of sense. But if there are areas that we would like to refine or edit, there's talk of like a secretary position. I think that could be probably omitted or clarified further. That's a staff responsibility. But if there's anything that you would like to see added or adjusted, we can definitely do that. I think just learning that we had them was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense that we would have them. Let's make sure that the group has them and that you're aware of them and know what you're responsible for. So I would maybe just use this as an assignment for a future board meeting that we revisit at a later date. I might also put in tandem with a percent for our ordinance itself that as it has had a lot of public attention over the last, I would say 3 or 4 months, as people have been very interested in the mechanism of it. If there is a request for updating it or edits, let's look at it comprehensively, maybe with the bylaws and the function of this council as well. So not something that we have to do today or even next month, but just something that if we want to make edits, we have a mechanism to make those edits. This document is supported obviously by our law department. So if we want to make adjustments, we would run any revisions through the law department, garner their advice as well.
Yeah, if there are any changes that we want to make to the bylaws, we do have to vote on those, and they were required 2/3 majority to make any changes to the bylaws. So something to keep in mind. I mean, it's not too difficult. We usually have very good attendance, but we want to do it in a time when people are here, but also we need 2/3, for any proposed changes. Also, just to go back a little bit again I want to talk a little bit about the percentage for our ordinance that was passed. That's fairly recent. That was passed in 2020.
Yeah, January or December of 19 is when it passed. So went into effect January of 2020.
So it was right before the pandemic, and really it didn't get implemented until 2022 maybe, and when Lindsay was on board as a new director. So it's very much a document that we're still interpreting, right? There's a lot in there, but as we are going through the procedures of design council and assigning dollars to new projects, getting RFQs out, there's all these different steps that we follow. We have been looking always back at the ordinance and translate how the ordinance actually plays out in real life. So just know that we're still working through that. And we made a lot of, I think, really important changes and changes to our own procedures in design council. Something as simple as getting an RFQ before it goes out to the world for us to review it and make sure that we understand what the mission and the purpose of each project is, and make sure that the RFQ fits that. It sounds very small, but it makes a huge difference once we actually start getting our projects to review. So we'll just keep working through it over the months. It's not something that we're gonna do next month, like you said, and then vote on it. It's as we go through projects, we'll identify gaps and blind spots, and then we'll work on those and continue to improve the process. This is just my own personal idea. We got to talk to, of course, but it would be great to have another little retreat / lock-in, right? Like we did a few months back, where we get together an afternoon and we go through the bylaws, we go through the ordinance and the processes that we have and find ways to improve those. We did that previously a few months back and it was really helpful. However, it's a lot of work. It's like we're literally going through the whole ordinance, so we couldn't get everything done. It would be helpful to do that again in the near future. So just I want to put that in your heads. We might be calling you on to hang out for an afternoon in the next few months. Yeah.
Can you give just a real high level review of the cultural arts ordinance about what it is and stuff? I find I have a hard time giving that micro speech when I'm trying to tell people
Yeah.
and understanding.
And please correct me if I'm missing anything out, but basically it assigns 2% of the CIP dollars every year to public art. So that comes to about $1.7 million each year that it's assigned for public art projects. And in the ordinance, it says that then design council has the authority to identify projects each year that could have public art and then allocate those dollars towards those projects.
The 2% isn't necessarily reflective of per project. It's just 2% CIP, and then that can be
Correct.
Distributed across in different levels.
Correct.
Okay.
Previously, I believe that, and maybe you were still on the council when we're doing it differently. Basically, it was project to project basis, right? Now, with the ordinance, the benefit is that ensures that every year we have money for public art. And it's, where's the money coming from again? From the capital improvement, right? So, yeah, so,
I just want
Yeah.
to clarify, because even something as we're trying to figure out its mechanism, it's 2% of the total CIP, but it's only, I believe, general obligation fund. So there's a lot of different bonding and funding mechanisms for CIP. So that doesn't mean every like highway project is going to account for it. So that $1.7 million is based on the amount that we're able to have 2% of. So if it's $1 billion project or overall CIP through its various funding mechanisms, that doesn't mean it's overall 2%. But you mentioned it, but I'll just hit it home again. It's we assign those funds to a project, so it's not every single project has 2% for it. There's a majority of the projects would not be good candidates for it. They're burying power lines or sewer projects. Like the opportunity for public art arguably isn't there. So it's really up to design council to work with the variety of city project managers and department directors to showcase what's coming up in the timeline and where we believe the opportunities are, and some suggestions on the amounts, because there's some projects that are forecasted in the CIP, their timeline of when they actually like break ground can vary greatly. So we want to be careful on funding projects at the right timing with staff recommendation. A good example is Finley Ross Park. Design Council applied art funding to that project. Spoiler alert, it has not happened because the private dollars weren't raised at the same time. So we ended up reallocating those funds, but we're sensitive to when we think the project is actually going to happen and where we can apply funding. So it's a very fluid process in the budget meetings that we'll have. And typically it's been a subcommittee. It could be the entire council that goes through and figures out what are the projects that are going to hit future CIPs.
So for the subcommittee, literally we get a giant spreadsheet, right, that projects 10 years of capital projects, capital investment projects. Really, we're only looking at the first 2 to 3 years realistically, right? Everything else imaginary numbers at that point. So we don't really worry about those. We're looking at the first 2-3 years that are down the docket. And then we start assigning, we break down that $1.7 million into all the different projects that should get public art, right? And we're going, and there's a so there's maintenance, there's roads, there's, new facilities and infrastructure, highways. So go through all of those and again, like I say, identify which ones make sense, right? If they're fixing up a pothole, we're right. Obviously, maybe it doesn't make sense to have public dollars art. Maybe we do need art in a pothole, but maybe not city funded public, right? So we kind of make those decisions, identify which are the projects that make sense of public art. Once we have identified those, then we go back and look at the $1.7 million and divide the money based on the scale of the project, the budget of each project, and there's a robust discussion about all of that with the people in the subcommittee and the city staff and assigning those dollars as well. So it's there's a lot of thought that goes into it, right? We're not cavalier about that. We're really, and we want people when, again, maybe it makes sense to have the whole council be a part of that discussion. Maybe that might be helpful for this next year since everybody's new, just to kind of get you all really acquainted with the process. But for me, it's been really eye-opening to see, one, all the projects that are happening in our city, period. Kind of looking at the crazy spreadsheet, but then looking at where we can have the most impact with the dollars that we have. We don't have to spend all $1.7 million every year. We don't always do. Sometimes there's some money reserved. We try to keep some money reserved for any special projects that might pop up throughout the year. Sometimes they do. But
If we don't use it, we still retain it for.
sort of, yes.
The great part of the ordinance is that it is protected funding. It can only be spent on public art, but it's not necessarily falling within a use or lose. We just need to make sure we apply it so it doesn't get lost in a shuffle.
Right. Somebody else can snatch it if we don't.
If I could just add maybe a couple more caveats. Historically, the funding is always complementary of another project that's within the CIP, which makes a lot of sense. This coming year will be the first time we are having an independent project. which is the downtown pedestal art project. So infilling the vacant pedestals in Old Town that was formerly the Sculpture Walkabout. Design Council allocated funding for that next year to be an independent project. So it's not attached to another project in any shape. So we're going to be doing that for the first time next year, which is a really exciting opportunity, and we're grateful for that funding available. And then we also have 10% of the fund can be used for maintenance. This current fiscal year is the first time we've ever utilized that. Keep in mind, the ordinance is still very new, so we're still figuring it out. In terms of like, yes, it's multiple years old, but CIP projects are typically multiple year projects, if not 5-10 year long projects. By the time it's like budgeted for, by the time we do a ribbon cutting at the end of it, the projects take several years to complete. So the maintenance part of it's a really exciting opportunity that we're able to tackle some big projects this year. And then the independent project, that's something that Design Council could entertain in the future.
Right. And that's to me a great opportunity. You know, right now, this is sort of like the process that we have that we're following with the new ordinance. And as we continue to interpret the ordinance, I think that's where everyone's I guess innovation and council can really be helpful, right? Can we think of ways to really have a greater impact with the CIP dollars that we have, like the pedestal project? You know, that was something that was part of Arts Council, right? Where there was initially they were going to have art rotate year to year and those pedestals in Old Town. That didn't work out after several years. It's just sort of sat there. That was presented to Design Council. Do we want to have permanent art on these? Can we allocate dollars to commission artists to create a piece for each pedestal and have it be permanent public art? And we decided, yes, we want to do that, right? So there is room to have new projects or different ways to spend these dollars within the rules and regulations of this body. So again, as you get more acquainted with all of these processes, I think hopefully my hope is that we can expand the ways that we are funding the arts within legal terms.
Obviously, like, as you have ideas or questions, bring them to us and we'll figure them out too. I think I've been here 3 years. Jen is, are you 2 years? 2 years now, I think, over a big learning curve of just figuring stuff out. So now we're at the point where we can be making recommendations like the downtown pedestal project. But if those of you who are in the community utilizing public spaces, if you're like, man, it'd be really cool if we could just have some sort of aesthetic improvement here or there, we can definitely entertain them as a group, and staff are happy to help prepare kind of scope and budgets to what those projects might look like so we can kind of figure them out together.
Yep.
Have we ever explored any private-public partnerships? Like talk about the pedestal projects, like I could see a sponsorship opportunity for.
That's
some of those.
That's come up before. We haven't really, we haven't dug too deeply into that conversation, but it's something that has come up. You know, what does a public-private partnership look like for public art? Yeah, we haven't talked about it in detail, but that's something that has come up for sure. Yeah.
Yes is the answer. We can explore any of those.
Yeah.
I think with the sculpture project, it's not necessarily a public-private partnership, but we're likely going to sit on the project for a little bit in the spring because we've applied for a National Endowment of the Arts grant to match our funding. So hopefully we get that grant so then we can double the funding available for that project. So we're able to leverage the funding that Design Council % for our program has allotted to additional funds available. And we could likely do that with community match or private dollar matches at the same time. And then actually maybe a public-private partnership is the Chester I. Lewis project.
Yeah.
The Downtown Wichita and Greater Wichita Partnership helped fundraise a good chunk of that entirety project, not just the art, but the park development itself. So we do that on a project basis all the time. And similarly with city council members who are very passionate about different projects within their district, they're usually great resources to help figure out, well, here's what we could get for this budget. If we had a little bit more, we could figure it out. They're usually really helpful in figuring out what private dollars could be available in their district to help make those things happen. So we do entertain them, but really it's very project specific.
Yeah. And last thing I will say about this is kind of getting a little bit into the future. I don't want to get ahead, but I know that in the last few years, there have been a lot of projects happening, especially downtown and with the public pools being renovated and a lot of improvements in downtown. We've had plenty of projects to allocate funds to. In the next few years, those projects are going to slow down, meaning that there are going to be less opportunities to spend those dollars on from the CIP perspective. So we'll be in a unique place where we might have more money than projects to spend. And I think that's where
We'll find some projects.
we'll find, right. So that's where I think this conversation is relevant, right? Where we can really find ways to incorporate public art in different spaces when there's not enough CIP projects to do that. But again, we'll cross that bridge once we get to that. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess we'll just sit on these bylaws. I would ask you to take the time to review those. It's really short. It will take you less than 10 minutes to read them, if that. And any comments, suggestions you have, bring them to the next meeting. Or maybe we'll let you know when we'll discuss this again. If you see that there might be some changes necessary. We don't really need a vote on that item. So let's move to item number 5. We have the Delano Greenway and Dog Park dedication. So those dogs are already installed? No, wait, no, this is a different one. Yes, this is the
That's
the
Country
walkway.
Acres
You're right.
Dog Park.
I'm
Yeah.
confused.
Although they are in process and looking fabulous.
So excited to see those.
So yeah, I just wanted to make you guys aware so you can save the date on your calendars. A formal invitation will be going out as soon as I have it from the comms team. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Greenway Path and Dog Park that they've installed along the Chisholm Trail from Sycamore to Exposition. But they'll do a dedication ceremony on December 11th at 2:00. You guys, I don't know, have you guys been over there or
This is in Delano.
spotted them in Delano? So Kent Williams produced and Steve Atwood produced 3 Corten longhorn horn sculptures that have been installed along the pathway. And they look fabulous.
The next week, December 11th, 2 p.m., you're welcome to join us for the unveiling, and not necessarily unveiling of the art, but celebration of the project completion for that.
Yep.
So there'll be some speakers from Parks and Recreation, from City Council. Come out and support the project. It's an exciting new development. Sorry, we have maybe one more as may arise.
Okay.
I always put Jana on the spot, I apologize. We have the original Joan of Arc statue that was a sister city's gift to the community. A recreation of it is on display in front of the former Central Library. We are working on reciting the original stone sculpture that cannot be put outside just because of deterioration. We had our conservator out a couple months ago to look at it and give it a assessment, and we believe we have a location for it in City Hall in the lobby. You're still confirming that, but we hope to have her recited and on display to the public by the end of the year. Still working on some logistics and final details, but we're excited to get her out of storage and into public lens. She is on display in front of the former library, but the original stonework, we're working on citing her in the City Hall lobby. Still figuring it out, not completely confirmed, but we'll send an email out once we have specific details, but hopefully by the end of the year, she's on display.
Great. I noticed that we have some stuff. I don't know if there was any other business. Just here to hear the awesomeness of Design Council. Great. Thank you for your support.
That might be my one more reminder that we need to call for public comment on different action
Yes,
items.
thank you. Can we add that to the agenda?
Yes, absolutely.
So
I'm sorry,
fine. It's just ingrained the whole process and I just
Just remember at this moment.
same. Sorry if you had comments. That's also another, again, just a reminder for those of you that are new. Over the years, the understanding was that you cannot have public comment on discussion. We also just learned recently in the last couple of months that in fact, we can have public comment in the ordinance. And so we're gonna add that to the agenda now, every meeting. After each item that is discussed, anyone in attendance can be part of the public comment with the same rules as any other comment in the city. You get 4 minutes, I believe. 5 minutes, okay, yeah.
That's come up in the past, just general information, is there might be constituents or business owners adjacent to a property that have questions or concerns about a design of a project, that they might want the design council to be aware of as you're making your decisions. For the most part, those are handled outside of design council at the district advisory board meetings, or if there's a project specific meeting that might have a project steering committee, depending on the size and scale of the project, they kind of work directly with property owners or users of a space to make sure that their voices are listened to. Every now and again, we do have a stakeholder come in and want to address this body. We kind of didn't know how that mechanism works because this is really an internal mechanism for city procedures. But now we formally will be accepting those points of feedback. And I'm sure many of them are wanting design council to take into consideration various parts that might impact their businesses or their homes. But a lot of those can be handled at the project level. So don't feel pressured to entertain or have rebuttals prepared. We can help steer those questions to the appropriate staff.
Okay, well, if there's no new business, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Yep, any seconds? Second, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned at 10:42. That might be a record.